Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and I'm here with my longtime friend and colleague, the one and only, the inimitable California Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. You'll be hearing from her shortly. And we are here today to remind California voters that there's a special election on November 4th, and Tuesday, November 4th. And importantly, that November 4th is the deadline to vote in the election. It's not we no longer, as you know, have Election Day. It is the last day to vote, not the only day to vote. California voters can cast their ballots early in a number of secure and reliable ways that we're going to talk about. And we encourage voters to vote early. Make sure your voice is heard. We'll talk about some of the changes to the U.S. Postal Service that make us want to put an emphasis on voting early. Voting early ensures that your vote is received and counted in plenty of time. It avoids last-minute mishaps caused by traffic, caused by illness, unexpected surprises at work or home, or anything that could prevent you from showing up at the polls on Election Day before the doors close. In California, it's your right to vote early. We have special laws that provide for early voting. You can vote as soon as you receive your ballot, and ballots are being mailed shortly, and you can vote in the manner that works best for you. One option is by mail. County elections officials must begin mailing each registered voter a vote-by-mail ballot by Monday, October 6th. This is the same ballot that you'd get if you showed up in person on Election Day. The difference is that you can fill it out at home, at your leisure, and return it as soon as you're done. If you choose to return your ballot by mail, we encourage you to do so ahead of Election Day. California law requires that every mail-in ballot be postmarked by Election Day if it is to be counted. And however, this year, this is one of the important announcements we want to make. Due to a change in the United States Postal Service's policies, mail-in ballots in some communities will not be postmarked the day they are mailed, but will instead be postmarked a day later. So this is important for the following reasons. That means that if those voters drop their ballot off at a U.S. Postal Service mailbox or post office on Election Day, it won't be postmarked until the next day, and it will not be counted. And that will be true for any community. And this is where our visuals are helpful here. This one. This will be true for any community that is more than 50 miles from one of California's 6 regional mail processing facilities. And you can see the facilities on the map that we have here today. So if you're 50 miles from these facilities on this map and you drop or you mail your vote-by-mail ballot on Election Day, it's not going to count. So if you want your vote to count, which I assume you do, because you're putting it in the mail, don't put it in the mail on Election Day if you're 50 miles from these voting centers. So very important. Again, it's why we're encouraging folks to vote early. If you do find yourself with your ballot in your hand, your vote-by-mail ballot, and you want to drop it off, make sure it's counted. There's a couple different things we recommend, especially if you're 50 miles away from one of these voting centers. You can go into a post office, go to the counter, and get it postmarked. That will ensure that it's postmarked on Election Day. You can drop it off in a ballot box. You can go to a voting center and drop it off there as well. Those are 3 other options that you would have on Election Day that we want to make sure you're aware of as you try to make sure your voice is heard and your vote is counted. And that's why we're urging, all voters to mail in their ballot early. It never hurts to send it ahead of the deadline, and it will prevent your vote from being left out, potentially not counted. Ballot drop boxes, which I mentioned, is a place where you can put your vote-by-mail ballot. They will be out and open as of this coming Tuesday, October 7th. So look for ballot drop boxes to be available shortly. They can be found throughout our communities, including at all public libraries. And for anyone who prefers to vote in person, you can still go early. How? Vote centers in 29 counties will open for early in-person voting on October 25th. So you can have the same in-person voting experience that you would have on Election Day on November 4th, but you can have that experience at a vote center in 29 counties starting on October 25th. 5th. You can also bring in, as I mentioned before, your mail-in ballot to those vote centers to drop them off, drop your ballot off in person. And of course, you can vote in person on November 4th. So a lot of different ways to make sure your voice is heard, to make sure your vote is counted. You can drop off your mail-in ballot at any polling place on Election Day. And before any of that, of course, you need to be registered to vote. And you need to be registered to vote before October 20th. Or on or before October 20th. You can register to vote up until October 20th. So there's still time. If you miss that deadline, you can still conditionally register at your county election office, polling place, or vote center through Election Day. Bottom line, you've got more days and more ways to vote in this election. A lot of options, a full menu. You can use what works best for you as a California voter. And there are many ways to skip the lines, avoid traffic, last-minute snafus. If those have been problems in the past, they don't have to be this year. If you plan and pick the pathway for voting lawfully, that works best for you. The right to freely cast your vote and to have it counted is, of course, the very foundation of our democracy. It's a right that defines our nation and our state. It's the right from which all other rights flow. Earlier this year, President Trump came after our voting rights when he tried to impose sweeping voter restrictions across the nation, including trying to require documentary proof of citizenship to register. He also tried to prohibit timely cast vote-by-mail ballots from being counted if they were cast before or on Election Day but arrived after Election Day. And we took Trump and his administration to court. We successfully blocked that unconstitutional, anti-democratic, and un-American effort. So those efforts that Trump had tried to implement and impose through his executive order are blocked by the court right now. And let me be clear, you do not need to provide documentary proof of citizenship when you register to vote. Here in California, we value, we respect, and uphold the right to vote, a right that is protected by robust, uniform, statewide voting laws that protect the integrity and the security of our elections, laws that ensure California's elections are fair, are free, and honest, accessible, and secure. As Attorney General, it's my responsibility to enforce California's robust election laws, and it's a responsibility I take very seriously. Many of our election laws are established in the Voter Bill of Rights, which I know the Secretary will get into in a moment. And today my office is reissuing a few alerts that expand on some of our crucial voting rights and election protections. The first is a guide to the rights of voters with disabilities, which covers state and federal protections, including the right to an accessible voting place and the ability to vote privately and independently in person, just like any other voter. The second is an updated bulletin for law enforcement on how to protect California voters from election interference and voter intimidation and deception. It's a felony to coerce or intimidate a person to vote, not to vote, or vote in a certain way. It's also illegal to fraudulently advise someone that they aren't eligible or registered to vote when, in fact, they are. The third is an updated consumer alert on election misinformation. In our ever-digital world, more and more voters go online to find news and information about elections and candidates. And while the benefits of the internet are innumerable and vast, it's also become a breeding ground for misinformation, for deep fakes and straight-up lies. That became all too evident in 2020 and 2024 when we saw a dramatic uptick in the amount of false and misleading claims about where, when, and how to vote. Unfortunately, I think we should be prepared for the same kind of deception and misdirection this election. Just as we saw last year when thousands of voters in New Hampshire were targeted by scam robocalls impersonating former President Biden that tried to discourage folks from voting in that state's primary. As you'll see in the alert we've released today, it's a crime to intentionally mislead voters about their eligibility to vote or about where and when to vote, and a crime to tell someone they're ineligible to vote when that's not true. It's a crime to direct someone to the wrong voting place or tell someone their polling place is closed when it's not. So those are all examples of what's prohibited under the law. We want to make sure that we reemphasize those rules that help make our election system here in California safe and secure, reliable, and accurate. The unfortunate reality is that there are people who would prefer to see lower voter turnout, unfortunately, who would benefit if we stayed home and passed up on our right to engage in this democracy, who actively seek to cast doubt on our elections, processes, operations, and personnel. Our own president, the person who is charged with leading and protecting our democracy, spews falsehoods about election results, tries to conjure doubt and fear about the safety and security of our elections, and targets election officials who are just doing their job, tries to undermine the legitimacy of results he doesn't like and he doesn't agree with, and aims to disenfranchise swaths of voters. Our most powerful response is to exercise our right to vote, your right to vote. Your vote is your voice, and it's the most fundamental way to actively participate in our democracy, to advocate for your community, to create the society you want to live in, to help shape our future. It's your right. And I'll just end with this. From a young age, my parents always taught me that voting isn't just an option, it's an obligation. As a citizen of this great country, and like many Californians, I wasn't born in the U.S. I was born in the Philippines, and that was my mother's home country. My parents were living there and working there when they had me when I was born, and at that time, when I was just 2 months old, a dictator was rising to power, martial law was around the corner, and democracy was at grave risk. And my parents saw the writing on the wall and brought me here to California, literally here to LA, to Echo Park. It was where I was first brought as a baby. And they wanted me and my older sister, my brother who later joined us, to be able to live in a place where there was freedom and democracy and human rights and civil rights and the rule of law and the right to vote, to have your voice heard. They wanted a democracy for us. And my mom became a citizen so that she could cast her own ballot. I'll never forget that day when she told me that she was going to become a U.S. citizen. She actually said, I was in the middle of my first competitive campaign for political office, for public office, and she said that she was going to become a U.S. citizen so she could vote for me in my first election. So I knew from that day I would never be shut out in any election going forward. I would always have Mom's vote, even if no one else joined her. But she wanted to have a voice in her future, a say in her society. She wanted to vote for herself, her family, her community. She wanted to, like so many millions in this country, participate fully in our constitutional democracy, and that gave me a lifelong appreciation for our right to vote, and to this day fuels my work to protect that right for all voters. Secretary Weber and her team and my team at DOJ, we will continue to defend your fundamental right to vote without obstacles, without intimidation, and without deception. We will defend your right to make your voice heard. We will use the full force of our offices to ensure the security, integrity, reliability of our election and election results, and California voters can trust our election systems, our array of voting options, and the election results. Before I hand it off to the Secretary, I want to give a quick acknowledgement to my team at DOJ who make it possible for us to protect the rights of voters across our state, including our team at the Government Law Section, the Civil Rights Enforcement Section, the Consumer Protection Section, and the Department of Law Enforcement. Thank you to our team for your ongoing work, you've already done, you're doing now, that you will do through and beyond Election Day. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce my wonderful friend and incredible leader for the state of California, Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm always honored when I have the opportunity to participate in any activity that involves our Attorney General, Rob Bonta. He and I have been good friends since we were both in the legislature and have fought many, many battles together. And I was honored when he became the Attorney General because I knew then that the battle we would fight and face in this nation to preserve democracy, to preserve the right to vote, would be a battle that would be easier because I had a partner who had the same kind of commitment, the same kind of interest in making sure that every Californian and everyone in this nation had their democracy preserved by the right to vote. It's interesting as I listen to my good friend, and he talks about his past and his background and the desire of his parents to come to this country to participate in the democracy. My background is similar, but it's really very unique. I'm a second-generation voter, just a second-generation voter, despite the fact that my grandparents were in this country for over 200 years. And beyond the whole issue of the right to vote and those kinds of things, they were intimidated by not having access to free and open elections for those who are African Americans living in Arkansas. And so despite the fact that they were here since the early 1800s, they did not have free and open elections to them and the opportunity to exercise that without intimidation. And in fact, our journey to California when I was just 3 years old was because of the intimidation against my father, not only for not being able to vote, but also not being able to earn his fair wages and having wage theft on him done as a sharecropper in Arkansas and having his life threatened. So we came to California because it was a place that my parents believed very strongly that this would be a place where they could participate in the process of voting, that they could actually have children attend good schools that were open and to them and fair and honest with their education, and that California had some amazing things taking place in California in the early 50s and 60s. And so they came to California for that reason and got their first opportunity to register to vote. And the interesting thing that not only did they register to vote, they voted in every election after coming to California, but my mother became a poll worker, an honored person in a community that she took very care in giving the kind of openness and honesty that they had around voting and the protection of voting, so much so that when 45th and Broadway had no place for people to vote, my mother volunteered our home. And my house at 351 West 45th Street became a polling place in South Central Los Angeles until my mother's death. And so I witnessed voting and the importance of voting every day there was an election, no matter how small, how large. I knew that I had to get up and go out the back door, get my breakfast, go out the back door, walk down the driveway, and walk to school, middle school and high school at the time, because important things my dad said was happening in the living room. Not in the garage where there were spiders and bugs, he said, but in the living room where he moved out all of the furniture so that people could actually they could put up the polling place, they could put up the voting booths, and people could vote. And my parents and my family loved the idea that we were a part of the democracy that they had so long wanted to happen. And I am sure that my grandparents, who never got a chance to vote, particularly on my father's side, in their entire life, because they died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, would have been proud of that. And I take pride in the fact that we are a part of this process in our family. It's ironic that I'm Secretary of State of the largest voting base in the nation. And I represent, and my parents would have been proud that despite the fact that they seldom had an opportunity, grandparents, to vote, that we are now responsible for 23 million Californians voting. And it's important that we do that and we protect it as we would have protected it in the South. The ballot starts receiving this next week, and don't forget that early voting takes place. And you have the opportunity, as has been pointed out, to return it right away. We want to make sure people take advantage of that because of the information we received. Election is November 4th. It's always the first Tuesday, in November. And so it's a national issue, it's a national concern, and we're very concerned. And I'm grateful that my partner gets together with me before elections to remind people of the things that sometimes we forget. Reminds us of the opportunities you have, reminds us of the days and the dates and the time frame that it takes place, but also reminds you of your right and responsibility in election, and that you are protected by the state of California, and that we protect all those who not only work in our polls, but who would go to the polls to vote and to cast their ballot. Make sure as we've pointed out, make sure you return your ballot as quickly as possible because of new rules that might exist that may make it difficult, or not make it difficult, but make it sometimes impossible if it goes in on the day of the election. As we've often said over and over, the rules have changed this year. And so we want to make sure that all of our voters know that they should get their ballots in early, not wait till the day of the election. And if you do, there are some ways in which you can still get it done. Our office will still be open with an information desk to basically answer those questions that you may have, to give you directions as to where you may go. Our website will have all of this information on it. But if all else fails, be sure to call our hotline to make sure that we can give you the information you need. We don't want anyone to be so frustrated by the rules and regulations or sometimes information and misinformation that they lose sight of the fact that they still have an opportunity and they still can vote, and that is extremely important. The primary power is basically wielding your right to vote as we talk about the election itself and making sure that everyone knows exactly what the information is and what your rights are. California is fortunate to have a Bill of Rights in terms of voting. Every state doesn't have that. Every state doesn't implement it, but we do. And that is the right for you to have a ballot. Everyone has a right to have a ballot if you're registered. If somehow or another you make a mistake on that ballot and you haven't already cast it, you can get a new ballot. We will make sure you get another ballot because we want you to exercise your right and not to be shut out simply by some error that you may have made. The right to get help casting your ballot from anyone that you choose except from your employer or your union worker. That's one of your rights. You have a right to get help from those. Some people will tell you can't ask your neighbor. You can't ask your neighbor. You can get help from friends, from families, in terms of asking, what should I do? What does this mean? And if all else, you can always call our office. The right to drop off your completed vote-by-mail ballot at any polling place in California. Feel free to do that. Don't think that you have to go back to your neighborhood to drop your ballot off. You can put it at any polling place in California. The right to drop off completed vote-by-mail ballot at any polling place in California, and the right to get election materials in a language other than English, if English is not your second language. And enough people are voting in your district may not have it, and so as a result, be sure to ask for that, to ask for the ballot in the language of your choice, and to also to get assistance in the language of your choice. The right to ask questions of elected officials about election procedures and watch the election process. So you have a right to go in and to actually see the election taking place. We have folks who go to the ballot, who go to their registrar of voters office. They can observe the ballots coming in. They can observe, they can't touch them, they can't read them, but they can observe the process. And people are often impressed with the fact that they have access to it. So it is transparent, it's open that people can see it. The right to also to report any illegal or fraudulent election activity to an elected official at the Secretary of State's office. You have the right to call us, and we will not say, oh, that's not that important. You have a right to report any illegal or fraudulent activity you believe is occurring, and it's our responsibility to take that into consideration, to look at it, and to file the reports that may be necessary. So don't think that you are powerless in this process. You are an active participant in the process of ensuring the voting rights of everyone. It is illegal to interfere with the election process by intimidating voters or by deliberately providing inaccurate information to voters about the time, place, and manner of voting. People need to understand that that's against the law. We often have people who violate the law, and people think that they have a right to violate the law. They have a right to say what they want to say when they want to say it. You do not. You cannot share that information. You cannot give inaccurate information and mislead people from voting. Bad actors are always trying to use various kinds of things, whether it's AI, social media, whatever thing they want to, in order to confuse and intimidate our voters. We need to be clear about the fact that these efforts are illegal, and they are things that we will prosecute people for. So don't just believe because you can say what you want to say, as sometimes people tell you, you really can't say what you want to say anytime you want to say it. The trusted sources of election information are still our office, the Secretary of State's office, and other county election offices. We have a lot of county election offices. We have some amazing individuals who have very good information, and that's your trusted source. If you want some information, don't hesitate about asking a question from one office or another office or our office to call. We get lots of calls on the day of election, and we are happy when people call. We'd rather them call us than try to figure out whether or not something was true or not. Some of the information that came in at the last minute, and all of a sudden we haven't had a chance to put it on our website that's saying this is inaccurate, then you have to figure it out with other people. Feel free to call us. Call our office the day of election, the day before, and ask about this information. If we don't have the answer immediately, we will get it for you, because we don't want you acting on misinformation. There's nothing spread faster than misinformation. We know that. You know, you start a rumor here today, and by tomorrow it will be anywhere you can imagine. We want to make sure that you get the correct information, so don't take it as a burden to call the Secretary of State's office for information. If you have questions or need help, our hotline is 1-800-345-VOTE. So 1-800-345-VOTE is our hotline number. Don't hesitate to call us. We would be more than happy to hear from you. If you've been denied, believe that you've been denied any type of voting rights at all, if you think someone has denied your rights, contact my office at 1-800-345-8683. You can, if you think you've been given misinformation, somebody told you something was wrong that they should have been correct, be sure to make sure that you do that. We have voting hotlines in 10 languages. California is an extremely diverse state, so don't hesitate to do that. Also, you can also find all of this information, all of these numbers, if you forget, to deal with www.sos.ca.gov. That's the Secretary of State's office, sos.ca.gov. You will find amazing information on our website. All of the numbers you have, all the dates, the times, and maps, all those things are on our website, and we are more than happy to give those to you. You can use this number also if you have election-related questions. Don't remember that ballots will be hitting our mailbox real soon. Don't delay, as we were telling everybody, vote. It should be a relatively simple ballot because there's one item on the ballot. But there's plenty of information in our voter information guide as well as on the ballot, so don't hesitate to read that material, call us for questions, and we'll do what we can to get you the information that you need. Don't delay, as we keep saying, vote right away because of the change in the Postal Service. We could argue with that forever, but we want to make sure that this election that's coming up on November 4th, that you're going to do it in a way that will secure your vote and make sure that it gets in. You can sign up, and if you're worried about your ballot, we know about track your ballot at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov, where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. And I can tell you as Secretary of State, every time I get that note that says, we've got your ballot, I'm shocked, because I had forgotten and I had to put it in, and all of a sudden they not only tell me they got it, then they tell me that they counted it and all these things, and I'm just like, wow, you're watching me. And that's what, and I get excited, and I keep saying to myself, why are you so excited when you got that? You knew it was coming. But somehow or another, the fact that someone verifies for me that my ballot actually got in and that it got counted always makes me really excited. So I want to thank you all for coming here. Keep telling folks the same thing, don't delay. Vote right away. Your vote is your voice. It is definitely your voice. It is your power. It is what makes you the powerful citizen that you are, that gives you the opportunity to change the world that you live in and to change the communities and the things around you. As a child of as I said, sharecropper and people who never got a chance to vote until they were grown, and grandparents who never voted in this country despite all of the labor and the work that they did, they would be very proud of every person who cast a ballot and cast it with a kind of energy that says, I have finally arrived. This is my democracy. This is my world. This is my California. This is my neighborhood. This is my county. And that we have a right to have the kind of election and the secure environment that's there that says when I put it in there, somebody will say to me, hey, we got your ballot. We counted it. You're all right. Thank you very much.